Mommy, I want to die. Let's pause and think, because how we choose to react in this moment will shape and define a child's worldview on how to express their feelings and emotion later in life. My daughter, Sanaya, she's a hero because she chose and to be compelled and brave enough to share her truth that night. My son Antonio is a hero because he chose to sit and listen with genuine curiosity and compassion. Using heroic conversations, together we unearthed and honored the feelings that were burdening them deep inside. And together we all emerged stronger and closer than ever. Today, we continue to navigate and overcome the ripple effects of occupational stress and trauma, raising a family that is not paralyzed by shame or stigma. You may have heard that 50% of us, by our mid-40s, will experience some form of mental illness. Look around the room. Do you feel like you've been touched by stress, depression, anxiety, or any other mental health issues? Perhaps personally, through friends, family, or colleagues. Today and every day, we lose 11 Canadian lives to suicide. And these numbers are rising. Many of us will suffer in silence and wage these battles alone because we fear labels and stigma. Why? Aren't we all just human? Imagine living in a society with no stigma, where everybody can share their stories, their true feelings, good or bad, knowing that someone is listening, someone understands, and someone has your back. And what if I told you that you have the power to make that happen? We all have the power to steer the focus away from stigma and empower new growth and human connections, healing by heroic conversations when we choose to step up, speak out, and listen with compassion. Heroic conversations are honest, empathetic, respectful, open, intentional, and courageous. Human connection is at the foundation of our well-being. Heroic conversations cultivate human connection and do not cost a dime. Yet, organizations, agencies, and departments are struggling to provide resources and solutions to prevent or respond to mental illness. Many will invest in Band-Aid solutions with little or no long-term effects. As a family member to multiple first responders in fire, police, paramedics, and the military, I'm acclimatized and comfortable with each of their unique emergency service cultures. Spending over 10 years focusing on the application of mental wellness and the emergency service research, culminating in my doctorate, I have listened to hundreds of men and women and their families share their stories, both in and out of the station. Dedicated to continuing to implement strategies and solutions to promote their well-being while enhancing workplace and family cultures, because it's important that they be at their best, especially when we are at our worst. There is an urgency to address the occupational stress injuries that are hijacking the lives of our first responders and their families. Occupational stress injuries invaded and infiltrated my family. And between my personal and professional experiences, I have gained a profound sense of perspective and what I have learned can help to change the quality of life for others by informing the decision makers and leaders of the gaps and existing resources that lie within each of us to help best serve their departments, systems, and front lines. When you think about firefighters, what are some images or words that come to mind? Strong, brave, selfless. My husband, Vincent, represents first responders at their best, with his technical skills, physical agility, and extraordinary compassion. If you are in distress or danger, believe me, this is the guy you'd want on scene and at your side. Okay, eyes back over here, please. Let me really strip this down for you and continue exposing the devastating ripple effects of occupational stress and trauma. It's October 2016. Vincent comes home, 7 a.m., after a 24-hour shift, a different man. Quiet, withdrawn. In the days that follow, that sweet, gentle husband you once knew has changed into an angry, raging person. And there is no reasoning with him during these outbursts because he quickly isolates himself, completely ashamed of himself. And nothing you do seems right. Desperate, you reach out to family, hoping that someone may be able to break through to him. And instead you hear, "Stop provoking him. You're making it worse. Just leave him alone. He'll be fine." Every fiber of your being knows there's something terribly wrong. Your gut hurts. You're even afraid to leave him at home alone, afraid of what you might walk back into. Days turn into weeks. Weeks turn into months. You can't keep pretending or hoping that things are going to be okay. So what do? This was my reality. We had come to a crossroads, and we couldn't keep living like this. I decided to step up and have a heroic conversation. It was going to be the first of many that we would have. Being totally honest with the need to share my genuine feelings and thoughts, I set up the conversation so it would have no judgment and give us both the permission to be human, hoping that he might open up too. "Honey, I feel like I'm backed into a corner, and I don't know what to do. I'm going to have to make a decision that I don't want to make. I love you, and I don't want to leave you." Bursting into tears, he fell to his knees, struggling to find his words between the sobs. Vincent told me he recovered the bodies of 4 young people that had been burnt alive. That one shift broke open his Pandora's box of traumatic memories that he had neatly packed away for over his 14 years of service. Empathetically experiencing and identifying with his pain, I followed him down his endless black hole. He described having nightmares when he closed his eyes, flashbacks when he opened them. The smell of burnt flesh haunted him. He couldn't forget the little bodies that he had recovered from the lake years before. The faces and screams of people trying to make sense of their chaos. The heaviness on his shoulders from the weight and the wet tears of family members that he had held as he explained what had happened to their loved ones. Vincent, like many first responders, bear these burdens alone because they think it's just part of their job, For over a decade, he carried these memories alone because he didn't want to expose me or anyone else to this kind of suffering. The system has failed here. We prepare our first responders with the technical skills that are required to perform their jobs effectively. We even provide the physical conditioning and testing to ensure that they can exercise their duties. But it is only now that we are starting to consider how we might equip and enable them to psychologically process and cope from their inevitable exposure to trauma. Despite their efforts to bury it, the trauma follows them home. It ripples throughout their private lives, seeping into the lives of their loved ones. Vincent clenches his chest. He struggles to breathe. And he whispers, "I don't want to live anymore. It hurts too much." Do you feel his heart breaking? Hours pass. You're both crumpled together on the floor. Understanding his loneliness, helplessness, and pain, because you've been living it too without even realizing it, what had been happening for the past decade. Imagine sitting there and you feel a tingle in your body. It's a tingle of hope. Because as this all starts to settle in, it makes sense. A sense of relief washes over you because you finally realize that these are the signs and symptoms of post-traumatic stress. And you know that post-traumatic stress doesn't mean a death sentence. You know that post-traumatic stress is not the end of your family or your marriage. Professionally, you know that post-traumatic stress can mean new life and growth when you have the right strategies and solutions in place. Hopeful to provide him with a sense of worth and esteem. Looking into his eyes, you respectfully say, "Vincent, you're still my hero. You are still whole. All you need right now is some support and some support to help you process and digest everything that you're experiencing." Vincent was open, vulnerable, and receptive to that first of many heroic conversations. He was open-minded to the next steps, choosing to save his marriage, save his family, and ultimately choosing life. Thanks to my professional network and colleagues, Vincent was able to access help within 24 hours. We had started him with an integrated recovery process, including some educational programs that I had helped to create. And that's when it hit me. It's not this easy for everyone. How many other spouses, families have gone through this and didn't make it? How many gave up? How many lost their lives simply because they didn't have the network, the access, or the sheer capacity to access the help when they needed it? Many have probably reached that state where the mere thought of having to take care of someone else seems impossible. And then trying to deal with accessing the systems and dealing with the logistics of dealing with the department and insurances and all the other parties that come into the picture. It seems unthinkable, even impossible, especially when one is feeling broken and is in crisis themselves. This was extremely overwhelming for all of us. This is an area that we really need to get some more attention and make some more solutions so people are supported when they need it the most. When you are going through the worst time in your life, you can look totally fine on the outside, even laughing and joking. But inside, be completely numb. Do you ever feel like you can't do anything right? Constantly walking on eggshells? Feeling disconnected, lonely, unlikable, even unlovable? It's a struggle to keep up that facade. Today, I stand here with purpose and with the intention on having this heroic conversation with you. 2 years ago, as the spouse of a first responder, I completely fell apart, emotionally and physically drained. Alone, because I thought no one could possibly understand. And really, simply nobody asked. I went into a deep depression for weeks, barely getting out of bed some days. And while Vincent was attending his recovery program, my children and I were the forgotten byproducts of occupational stress and trauma, left on the sidelines. This is just another example of the ripple effects of occupational stress and trauma that spouses and families can face that no one talks about or acknowledges. This is the stuff the textbooks and the professionals don't tell you about. Honestly, because they just don't know. Thank you for taking the risk and having the courage of providing this safe space for Sanaya, Antonio, Vincent, and I to share some of our heroic conversations with you. How many of us in this room are connected to someone who might succumb to isolation, alienation, or extreme loneliness? Think about the difference that you could make by stepping up, speaking out, and listening with compassion, using heroic conversations. Your next conversation could be the launching pad of a whole new, stronger, connected version of yourself and your relationships. Sharing our story, we help people leverage the power of human connection. And now you have this power too. Human connection is at the core of our success and what saved us, fueled by our heroic conversations. The first one with Vincent was hard. The one with my children was scary. But each one got easier and easier, building on the one before. Heroic conversations bring out the best in us and have become part of our family operating system and culture. We're continuing to grow and thrive, moving beyond the toughest years of our lives, stronger, closer, and better than ever. And we hope to help other families and organizations do the same. Stigma is not just isolated to the emergency services. It's not about what you do or the uniform you put on. It's about who we are on the inside. Stigma is a human-inflicted phenomenon. So instead, let's embrace our humanity and give each other the permission to be human where no stigma exists. It's time that we revolutionize, innovate, and optimize our human health systems and mental health culture. We have already begun acknowledging the need for it, but what are we going to do about it? Think about taking the next step and being part of systemic solutions like heroic conversations. Think about being honest, empathetic, respectful, open, intentional, and courageous. And think about how these can unleash the power of your words to co-create a culture where the issues around stigma become irrelevant. Ultimately, the more connected we are, the more we become the best of the human condition. Heroic conversations cultivate human connection. Human connection is at the core of promoting well-being, preventing illness, and enhancing recovery processes. Here are the 3 things that you can do to optimize your human connection now. 1, make heroic conversations part of your own operating system. 2, be the one who steps up and speaks out when you need to. 3, be the one who can listen with compassion when someone else needs you to. Let's work together to optimize our human health culture so that human connection is at everyone's fingertips, powered by the heroic conversations on our tongues. This is for all the first responders, spouses, and families. Know you are not alone. I see you. It's time we hear you. We are ready to listen with compassion.